Hello, chess people. This is Eric or Ewizzle here today, and what I'm going to be bringing you today is the first video in Forgotten Openings. And Forgotten Openings is going to be a series I'm going to be doing where I'm basically just going to try to find weird openings that don't have that much content existing on YouTube or books or anything, and just basically explain the opening and just say, you can play it, you can't play it, you can play it for this rating, that rating. Here's the main lines, and you guys can try them out for yourselves. So the gambit we're going to be looking at today is after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4, the Italian game. And just to give a little bit of a background, the reason I stumbled upon this gambit is because I usually play knight f6. I don't really enjoy playing the variations where they play knight g4, and then you do d5, takes, knight a5, bishop check, yada yada, and then at the end they have queen f3. I'm just not a fan of that variation. With the black pieces, it seems like white has all the initiative. And then there's also this bishop c5 move, which I tried to play to avoid knight g4, and I just didn't like the positions where white gets a quick c3 and d4, all the main lines of the Joko piano. So I was struggling with this, and I came to the opening explorer, and I looked at the moves, and I saw that the highest scoring move for black, even, like, I have the settings here, even when you're looking at players 2000 and above, the highest scoring move is f5. And even if I take off bullet, it's still the highest scoring move. And if I take off blitz, it's somewhere around top 3 for the highest scoring moves in human games on this lichess database. So f5. And I think the reason why there's not that much content on this online, I think Agenmator did one game where Paul Morphy crushed it with the white pieces. And then there might be a few I think it's 2 YouTube videos that you can find that go over how to play this from the white side of things. But there's really nothing that talks about how to play it with the black pieces. So just very quickly, the sidelines, knight c3 is bad because you take, and if knight takes, you have the center fork trick. If they take the bishop first, you just take it, and then you get d5 in for free, and you're just much better. If they castle, they just gave up a pawn, very poor. And if they take on this g8, you just take back, and they just gave away the Spanish bishop for no reason. Or not the Spanish bishop, but the Italian bishop. So the sidelines are really no good at all. The main moves are d3, d4, and taking. d3 and d4 are the best. This move is playable where they take, but it's not very good. Black has many options. You can immediately kick the knight with e4, which is what the engine prefers. You can play knight f6, which is what I play, and then d5. And oftentimes they're just going to transpose, because you're going to play knight f6 and d5 and eventually e4 in basically all these positions. So just to give a glimpse, you might play something like knight f6, castles, d5, they pin your knight, you protect your pawn again, and then they come here threatening to win the pawn, and I'm pretty sure the engine just says castles and says that you can give up the pawn. Okay, yeah, you might have some e4 stuff, but black is just okay. Like, there's just really no issue. And I even believe that you can, I'll just double check with the engine really quick. You can even just castle, and if takes, you can actually just bishop takes f5, takes, and look at the engine here. Like, I'm pretty sure, is it honestly that you just have some type of Greek gift, and then queen here. So yeah, it's just, that's one of the traps I guess I kind of just stumbled upon. I've never had this in a real game, but that's one of the many traps, and that's oftentimes in positions like this. It's very similar to the Schliemann against the Ruy Lopez. Oftentimes, when they play moves like this, you can often just sack this pawn, and you just have so much initiative that it doesn't matter. So this move just doesn't offer much for white at all. I don't want to go too in depth because I'm not a grandmaster, obviously. I'm probably close to expert, maybe like 19, maybe even 1850 on a bad day in classical chess. So I don't want to give you guys like the concrete, best analysis. I'm just showing you this gambit and you can try it, but this move just doesn't offer anything for white. It's just very good for black. So now that brings us to the main moves. The quote-unquote refutation, I would say, is d3. d4 is also very good, and white can definitely get an advantage from this move. It's just a little bit more dangerous. So there's 2 moves here for black. You can take on d4, or you can take on e5, or e4, I should say. I personally have always taken on e4. The engine slightly prefers this move, but after takes, they can play e4, and then the knight can't. I don't like it. So you guys can try it. Feel free. I always play this move, and if they play knight g4, which I've seen one time, it's just not very good because you have d5. d5 and white just has nothing. So basically, they have to take on e5. And this is one of the main traps. So you're going to play d5, and you might be wondering, like, wait, what about this check? Can't they just check, and if you block, we're just going to lose an exchange? It's actually not the case. If they play this check, they're completely lost. Completely lost. You block, they take, you play knight f6. Only square to maintain the pin on the pawn is queen h4. After queen h4, you take on d4, and you're threatening this check. And if they try to ignore you and do this, that doesn't work. I played a game like this the other day. You take with check, king over, and actually you can sack the knight. You take the bishop, and if they take the knight, it's mate. I had a game like this just recently. So they can't really just ignore you. The engine provides this move, and the whole point is this line is different because now you can't take the bishop with check. Still way worse for white. Look, black's completely winning. You just win a rook, and you're just way better. You win a rook, the bishop's attack, this knight's probably going to be won eventually. Just horrible. So pretty much what most humans will play is bishop b3, and the issue with that is now you have knight f5. And after knight f5, the only square to maintain the pin so you don't lose the knight is queen h3, but after queen h3, the bishop has an x-ray on the queen, so you play knight e7, queen's hit, knight's hit, black's just completely winning. So this is one of the main traps, and I've won many, many games this way. So they just can't do that. Like, that's why I like this gambit so much, is a lot of times the white can maintain an advantage, but they have to just chill. They can't try to immediately punish. They have to just chill for a little bit. So the main move is bishop b5, just pinning the knight. And after that, you have queen d6. And any bishop f4 can just be ignored because there's really no good discoveries. Like, even if here, there's a lot of positions where you can just sack the queen. I would just play a6 if I was in this position, a6. And I'm pretty sure if you turn on the engine, if they try some knight g6 stuff, you can just take it for 1, because you haven't played knight f6 yet, sorry. So yeah, they basically have to take, and, castles. You can play queen e6, queen f6, anything. One move that's somewhat playable that scores decently is queen f6. But the problem with queen f6 is that, yes, most humans will play bishop g3 and then you'll be fine. But white can also just play knight c3, and the bishop is untouchable because knight takes d5. And then c7 is hit, the queen is hit, and the queen can't go anywhere to protect c7. So it's just lost. So I would avoid queen f6. a6 is probably your best bet. Queen e6 is always a solid move, just getting out of the pin. And white is definitely going to maintain some kind of advantage if they play accurately, but it looks playable to me after a6 especially. Takes, and knight c3, and it looks fine. It looks okay. Queen e6. I'd prefer queen e6 because I feel like the knight belongs on f6, but you can try queen f6. And yeah, the engine says +1, plus 0.8, 0.9, but I'd play this with black, and at least, if you go into these positions, you're always going to have a time advantage because, you're going to know these moves. Your opponent probably faces f5 in the Italian once every year and a half, so they're not going to know what to do, and they're going to have to think really hard to get to these solid positions because they're going to always have to calculate, especially if they're an aggressive player, they're going to have to calculate the aggressive moves and be like, oh, that doesn't work, and then, you're always going to have a time advantage. So that covers the d4 stuff. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed. Takes here. Yeah, pretty much any of the lines where they don't play the main move, like if they just play bishop back, I mean, look at the engine. You've immediately equalized in those scenarios. So let's take a look at the refutation. So the refutation is d3, and there's also another trap I'm going to show you right now. The move you have to find is bishop c5. You don't want to play a quiet move and allow knight g4 and then play knight h6. Disgusting. I'd rather resign. Whenever you play a knight on the rim to protect the f-pawn or the c-pawn, I don't think I've ever won a game where I've done that. So we're just going to play bishop c5, and basically the trap is, like I told you, white has to chill. They try to punish you with knight g4, you just play f4, you look at him and say, take my rook, man. Knight f7, whatever. Queen h5, I'm threatening mate, you protect mate. I'm going queen h3, and you can take the free rook. Go ahead, take it. And if they take it, you play d5, or you might be able to hit the rook first. Either one. Let me see. Hitting the rook first seems to be slightly inaccurate, but basically d5, and they have to take with the pawn, which nobody ever does. Just give me a moment. I'm going to just expand the database a little bit. And basically no human in this position has ever played pawn takes, but I'm still going to cover it because it's the best move. If pawn takes, the whole point, let me just quickly, so bishop takes, you have bishop g4, and then white is basically already in a lot of trouble here. Yeah, white is already in a lot of trouble. It took the engine a moment to realize it, but you're just kind of screwed. Like, look at all these pieces. Look at all these pieces, man. Like, even this knight can come in and join the party. And I mean, what, you got these, you're setting up for the next game, you got this guy doing a whole lot over here. I mean, this bishop's pretty good, but it's by itself. So, you know, black is just basically lost. And if pawn takes, the whole point, and that's why I had to show you bishop takes first, is that now after bishop g4, white can just take, and it's like it's I would still take the black pieces, but after takes, the whole point is now you're hitting the knight, so you also get the knight, and you just have a lot of material for the queen if you're playing with the white pieces. Still looks very scary. I would never want to play this with white, but it's a little bit better. So after pawn takes, the move is to just take here. They obviously can't take with this pawn. They'd have to take with this pawn, and then knight here, and then, I mean, you got bishop g4, you got knight f3 after, you got queen g2, and, I mean, see ya. Like, good luck with the white pieces. So that's the whole point. Basically, knight f7 here, and they basically, no human's ever going to find queen d2. I'm not even going to go into that move because it blocks the bishop and does nothing, it looks like. This move is more human. You know, maybe white realizes you have a big attack, but you're still much better. Look at the engine. You just come here. You still have some bishop g4 stuff. Maybe you just have to play here first, but, I mean, black's doing very well. So after bishop c5, knight g4 or knight g5 is just not a good move. The only way for white to really play for an advantage is just to just relax and just play normal moves. So like knight c3, knight f6, castles, d6. And the refutation of this line is bishop g4, you pin the knight, and pretty much black is just kind of in a weird predicament. You kind of have to go knight a5 to get rid of this bishop so you can castle, but the problem is in that line, takes, knight d5, hitting c7, you come back, and now b4 is like the thematic refutation, because after knight takes, very important not to take the knight, white's going to take the bishop. After the knight moves back to a5, only square, queen d2 hits the knight, forces knight to come back to c6, and now you have queen g4. And the whole point is white's just going to trade the queens and win c7, which is kind of ugly. So basically you would just castle, takes, knight takes c7, hits the rook, you move the rook, and then you just have to play this position. I think the move is white will take on d6, rook takes on d6, and yeah, it looks slightly better for white, but you know, let's take a look on the engine. Plus 1.3, plus 1.2, you know, I think that if you play this, you know, it has so much upside, so many of those traps where, you know, if white tries to punish, you immediately counterpunch and have a better position. I think that by the time, if you have an opponent that gets to this position, which I've never had, the time advantage that you're going to have on the clock is going to be worth the plus 1.4 advantage, in my opinion. I think this is okay. It looks a little ugly because this rook's undeveloped. But let's say, you know, they play h3, b5, and now the bishop's coming alive. Maybe we play f4. Maybe we get the bishop out. Maybe we, find a way to get this knight out of here. Um, and white's definitely better, but it's not unplayable. Like, the amount of people that I see on YouTube that anytime this gambit is mentioned, they just immediately dismiss it. They're just like, oh, yeah, that's horrible. This diagonal is that you can't do that. You can do it. You can. You can play this. I've had very good results with it. I've won a lot of games. Even rapid games, I've played it. And it's a perfectly viable opening, especially in Bullet and Blitz. You can play it on any level. Super GM, Magnus could pull this out in Bullet, and I think he'd be fine. If he did a little research into it. And even under Master, like under 2200 USCF, I think you could play this even in classical chess. And the time advantage that you're gonna get, even if white plays fine and makes it to a position where they maintain a strong advantage, you're still gonna be up on the clock, and they're still gonna have to prove it. Like I said, like in this variation where you get to this position, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 against 4. So they're up a pawn, but I mean, oftentimes up a pawn is not enough, so they're still gonna have to prove it. So yeah, that's the Russaeu Gambit, or however you say it. Sometimes it'll transpose into the Lucchini Gambit, which I think Eric Rosen made a video on, which is a slightly different move order. So basically, after d3, it transposes into the Lucchini after bishop c5, because basically the other move order is knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, d3, and then f5. The reason why I prefer the other move order is because after bishop c5, they can play c3, and then f5 isn't really that good because they can just immediately strike with d4. So I prefer it this way, and what this allows is the d4 stuff. And it allows the e takes f5 stuff, which are slightly different than the Lucchini. But yeah, this is the video on the Russaeu Gambit, and please, if you use it and you like it, or if you've won some games, hit me up on Twitter, send me the game at the Ewizzle. And yeah, enjoy. Peace.